Hello and welcome to episode number 7 of the Papercast with me, Dominic Hill. My guest today is Agnese Rondoni. I think I've smashed that. I'm quite proud of myself. Former PhD student studying consumer behaviour and marketing in the School of Agriculture, Policy and Development here at the University of Reading. Agnese recently submitted her thesis entitled Stakeholders' Views, Consumer Preferences and Demand for Plant-Based Eggs, a Cross-Country Investigation, and now works as a Senior Consumer Insight Analyst at Shark Ninja. Today we're going to be discussing her papers, exploring consumers' perceptions of plant-based eggs, using concept mapping and semantic network analysis, and consumer preferences for intrinsic and extrinsic product attributes of plant-based eggs, an exploratory study in the United Kingdom and Italy, published in the journals Food Quality Preferences and the British Food Journal, respectively. Welcome to the podcast. It's great to have you here.
Thanks so much for having me, and that's all very correct, so thank you.
I'm pleased with that. Normally I just jump in and don't introduce people, and I think it's maybe slightly confusing for people watching and just like, who is this person? Why are you speaking to them? So
right.
It's probably a good idea to actually let people know who you are. And as I said, you've finished your PhD.
I finished my PhD.
So you are officially Dr. Rondoni.
A doctor, exactly.
Congratulations, very good. Hopefully I'll get there one day. It feels a very long way off at the moment.
Yeah.
But it's nice to speak to someone. I think last week I spoke to a guy who just started his PhD. So this will be an interesting one to follow up with, someone who's sort of just finished and is in the real world.
It does feel like never ending, honestly, at some point. It feels like I will never get there, but you keep going and figure out what, how to get there at the same time. It's weird. I know it doesn't sound right when I say that, but keep going, keep doing things every day is the solution, is the right thing to do.
Take every day as it comes,
exactly.
I think. So your whole project was about plant-based eggs.
Yes.
So I think the obvious first question is, what the hell is a plant-based egg?
So a plant-based egg, in the most simple way I can describe it, it's an alternative to conventional eggs, which is not made by ants. So it's made by, it could be made by several vegetable sources. So for example, soy, peas, mung beans, which is a bean produced in China mostly. It's an alternative like any other plant-based alternatives that you can see right now in the supermarket, like vegan burgers or vegan chicken wings I've seen in Asda recently.
Vegan chicken wings?
Yes, and they're really tasty because I'm vegetarian as well.
Okay.
So I'm trying all these alternatives and they're quite good. It's an alternative made in a laboratory in most cases. And it's available in the US right now. It's not yet available in any country in Europe because the safety regulations in Europe are much more tough than the US one in that sense when it comes to food, I have to say. So it's not yet in Europe, but hopefully it will come soon. And you'll be able to see in Asda or maybe any other supermarket.
So have you ever eaten a plant-based egg?
I did,
You did?
yes.
Okay.
Because I was in contact with a food scientist from the University of Reading, and she was working with one of these plant-based egg companies. And she came to me and said, like, oh, I've got a prototype of plant-based eggs. Do you want to taste it? And I did. It's actually really good. It was good.
Okay.
And actually, I've done a scrambled egg with it.
Right.
It's very similar. You couldn't tell, I would say.
Really? You couldn't tell
the difference.
That's a high bar.
I know.
I'm not sure I believe you.
Okay.
Not totally.
Okay.
I'd have to try it for myself.
Yeah, you'd have to try. Yeah.
Were you a vegetarian before you did this? Was that like the inspiration for it? So you became converted during the course of your reading all these papers, going, oh my god,
exactly.
I need to become a vegetarian.
That's my PhD. It's the main reason why I became a vegetarian.
Really?
Actually, yes, and that's because I've read so many papers about how the quality of the meat production in Europe and mostly in the rest of the world. And I was like, this is unbearable for the environment. It's unbearable for us from a safety perspective, because of course in all these intensive farms, the likelihood of getting some bad bacteria is really high, and this would affect the quality of the product, the meat, or any fish farms. That's very similar in that regards. So I was really and also, knowing the plant-based alternatives that are currently available, I said, I can definitely go to a vegetarian diet much more easily now than it used to be. So I don't see why I should be continuing eating meat and fish. So
Okay,
I just stopped. But yes, the PhD contributed a lot.
That's amazing. The power of education.
Yes.
I don't eat most meat, not because of anything I've read or any reasonable, rational arguments. And this is probably one of my long stories I have to cut out, but I used to work on a pig farm.
Okay.
And that just put me off for life. It was really unpleasant, and I have never gone back. And I think people would assume it would be difficult for me to cut out meat, but after working there, it was so easy.
Exactly,
I have never craved a sausage or a burger since working at that farm. It was was awful, and you could sort of feel that it was on a very small scale. You could feel that it was having an impact on definitely the environment, because the smell was horrific, and you go, well, why does this smell? It must be releasing all kinds of toxic or greenhouse gases, and the conditions were just poor. And you think about where the food for these animals has to come in, the transportation of these animals.
Exactly.
So that was a bit of an eye opener for me.
To be honest with you, I've always thought about, I've never seen a farm, and probably if I'd seen a farm before, I would have become vegetarian much earlier, because I'm sure that if I go there and I see the way, these animals are treated, and, the smell, as you just said, it's really something. So it would.
Did you just say you've never been to a farm?
Ever.
You've never been to a farm. You did your PhD in the Department of Agriculture, Policy and
I
Development.
just landed in agriculture. I'm from business schools. I've been in business schools all my life. And when I was accepted at the University of Reading and I did my first interview with my supervisors, I even asked, guys, I think I'm in the wrong department. And they were like, no, you'll be doing your PhD in agriculture. And I'm like, okay. And I've been surrounded by people talking about crops and potatoes, and for the past 3 years I was like, really, I'm out of the box here. I don't know why I'm here. So yeah, I know, but
that's quite funny just to imagine a business school graduate rocking up at the agriculture building.
I know, I'm a business school graduate.
You never went up to the farm here?
Never.
To Sonic?
No.
Oh, maybe I have to drive you up or something, just so you can look at it and see that. I think they've got cows there, and you can just look and go, oh, I've been to a farm now.
Okay.
So did you grow up in like a city?
No, I mean, it's actually a very small town, but probably it's because my family didn't ever like own a farm, and I don't know, my father is a doctor, so I never really end up being in a farm.
I don't know why I find that so amazing. Well, I think it's probably because I grew up in like a rural part of England, so like everywhere is like you go out of my mum's house and there's a field. Okay. Like that's where we live. So I know people that own farms, and my godmother is a farmer, so maybe I'm unfairly amazed that you've never been to a farm.
Well, it must be actually quite weird, to be honest, given that I'm almost 30. But yeah, I've never, no, not even with schools or, those school trips when you're a kid. But no, farm was never an option.
I can't imagine going on a school trip to a farm. That's just like,
when
I guess you must have to do it if you live in some places, but not where I'm from.
Yeah, not for you.
So I feel like we should probably clarify at the top that you are Italian. Mm-hmm. That's right. I haven't got that wrong. That would have been really embarrassing if you were like, no, I'm not Italian.
I am.
You've butchered that. Yeah. I assumed from the fact that you did some of your research with Italian subjects, and that you, I understand, interviewed them in Italian and then translated everything. What was that like? Is it good? Because I think as a British person, we're not very good at languages, and that sort of seems basically impossible. The idea that you would conduct a PhD, which is like a very difficult thing to do, in 2 languages at the same time, and then like go back and forth. What was that like? Is it just something that you can just do because you speak 2 languages fluently, and it's not that hard, and I'm just an ignorant British person?
Yeah, no. I think that's a really good question. The answer, the simple answer is that it wasn't tough because Italian is my first language, my native language. So it was just really having a conversation with these people. And I've been living in the UK for about 7 years now. So I've been educated in the UK. My master degree was from a UK university. So like my sort of education background is in English. So with Italian was just like talking to my mom or my sisters or my friends, and like everything that was about purely my PhD, reading papers and understanding methodologies or going to conferences more widely, more broadly, was just in English, which is what I've always done. So it wasn't that hard. It was really hard, like the process of translation for me, because it's something I've never done, like translating. Translation it's never been part of my job in any field I've been into. So like making sure that what the person was saying was actually the same in English, the same meaning, was the toughest part in that sense.
Right, because I guess you're not going through like word for word and just changing Italian words to English words, which I think is how most people that don't speak two languages would think it would be. But you actually have to capture meaning and quite technical meaning and then convert it into a totally different language that might not capture the meaning in the exact same way.
There are also things that like their way of saying in Italian or in English that wouldn't work in the two languages, and you can't really replicate. So,
I guess like idioms and sort of metaphors and things are probably quite difficult. But it's amazing that you can do that, and I guess that's something that it's one of those things that I think PhDs often throw up, is you end up with a skill that you might not have thought your PhD would give you. Like you're doing a PhD basically in sort of business marketing stuff, but in also an agricultural department, but then you come out with the skills of translating, which is probably something you might not have thought would have come out of it at the beginning.
Although my master degree is in business and economy of China, so I've been learning Mandarin for the past 5 years.
Oh, really?
So that was something in the back of my mind, like the idea of needing more languages to do my job, really.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
So how's that going? How are you getting on with your Mandarin?
Not so good. I've lived in China for about a year in 2018. Yes. And at that stage, my Mandarin was really good. Right now, of course, I'm losing it a little bit, but I've got lots of friends in China. We chat and we stay in contact. So that's a way to keep my Mandarin going. But definitely it's not as bright as it used to be.
Are people surprised when you were in China and then you would just start speaking Mandarin?
Oh, yeah. As long as you say just ni hao, which is the hi in Chinese, they would be like, oh, wow, you speak Chinese. Like, oh, wow. Yes, they are. They very much are.
I think I've seen videos of guys like doing that in China. And
despite there's lots of foreigners now speaking Mandarin very well. So
more
but
common.
they keep being very surprised about that. Yeah.
So I think you mentioned in one or both of these papers that plant-based eggs are not one thing. There are multiple different kinds of plant-based eggs. So the ones you tried, was that presumably like the liquid?
The liquid one, exactly.
That I think makes most sense.
Yeah.
In my mind.
In your mind, okay.
I guess powder is. I'm speaking for you now. I'm telling everyone what the types were, but it was powdered, liquid, and then like a proper egg-shaped plant-based egg, which is the creepiest, definitely.
I know.
But the creepy. Powder, I guess, makes sense. People are sort of used to milk powders and things like that, and protein powders now, I guess, are quite common. And then the liquid, I think, makes sense. But the does it have a yolk? The egg?
It has a yolk. Yes.
And it has so it's a white, and it doesn't have a shell.
Oh, it's not like a proper shell, but that's like something outside that you need to take off before eating that, which wants to replicate the idea of cracking and peeling an eggshell.
Yeah. Do you have any thought about why that's, or is it just me? But it feels like that's slightly creepy.
Yeah, it feels creepy, but the idea of replicating the exact same functionalities and also aesthetic of, conventional meat food, and I'm also talking about referring about milk and, for example, vegan burgers or things like that. It's very clever from a marketing perspective. Consumers want to see, especially those called flexitarian, which are those transition that are moving towards a vegetarian diet or a vegan diet. They need something similar that, or at least that reminds them more of meat food to do this jump to a different diet, because they're saying so they need us to. For now, stop. At the beginning, I would say stop eating meat or meat food, animal food. But they still want to. They still don't have the ability of cooking vegetables or, any other different ingredients that would be part of their new diet. So having something similar that reminds them of the food that they used to eat, it's good initially.
Yeah.
Not everyone has the same cooking ability, so giving them something that can do the same job as a conventional egg is it helps. And also, mind wise, we're used to be seeing eggs for years, so we probably initially need to see that. And me as a vegetarian, I also didn't struggle at all, like in the when I was transitioning to a vegetarian diet. But having, sometimes even now, having a plant-based burger, it's something appealing for me. Like I would go for that just because I want to keep eating burgers and I want to keep eating a scrambled egg, and I want to keep, because I'm also thinking about going to a vegan diet.
Really?
Because, yeah, I know that's going to be tough. But, thinking about, the idea of having something that could replicate eggs, and the idea of not giving up on certain foods.
Yeah, I think the idea that the sort of substitution idea is obviously quite important, because, as you say, people's levels of cooking vary, and you might be less likely to try a diet if you're confronted with the idea of cooking quinoa or chia. Whereas you can, to put in a chili or something. Whereas if you just whack in some corn mince that looks like mince, maybe you can get your head around that slightly faster, and then that might open up other possibilities of actually cooking like proper vegetarian
It's
food.
also a cultural thing. It's something that's also coming up in my papers. There are some cultures where giving up on meat is really a huge thing, because meat is the primary food that would be in any meal. Like Asia, for example, they would cook pork in almost every meal. So giving them something that could replicate or have the same taste and the same aspects that pork would facilitate the transaction of about 1 billion people towards a vegetarian diet, and that's enormous. The effects of this could be huge.
What do you think the effects of that would be?
These products promise to be environmentally way more sustainable than agriculture, livestock production. So that's the main effect that I would be seeing, like a massive reduction in GHG production in the environment. So secondly, from my perspective, a huge increase in animal welfare standards around the world. These animals wouldn't be treated the same way anymore. Like, they wouldn't be in farms, and I don't know, I see it like in a much more fair way. Also, and we don't have to forget that, but I don't want to go too far with that, because there's not much evidences in plant-based food yet. But if we think about all the illnesses that are caused by eating animal foods, these alternatives also promise not to cause certain problems like cholesterol or allergies, for example. So that could be another effect. There are not yet much evidences in terms of how healthy these products are currently, because they are rich in sodium, and the ingredient list of these products is really long yet. So there are I've heard some scientists saying this is not really a valid alternative from an health perspective. But so it's not something I'm seeing right now. It's like a direct effect, but it's something to consider, to keep in mind.
Yeah, I did my master's in nutrition.
Yeah. Okay.
And it was it's definitely a topic of ongoing debate as to especially I don't think too many people would argue with the sort of environmental standpoint. The animal welfare is obvious, that like if you've got fewer animals because people aren't eating so many, that standards of living are going to improve for the animals that you do have. Obviously, look at horses. They were dragging carts around for centuries, and now they just live on posh people's farms and get looked after. But the nutrition thing, I think, is quite complicated.
It is, yes,
because you're looking at a whole, especially with these new products, like with obviously with like fruits and vegetables, they've been around for a very long time, and people forever, and people sort of understand that or most people understand that they are good for you. But I think, as you say, there's not so much data on these new alternatives and substitutes that are coming in, and yet you still decided to eat a plant-based egg. Can you talk me through that experience a little bit more, because it's fascinating? Because you must be like the only person in Europe that's there's like 10 of you max.
Not so many, I would say. I agree.
So how did that come about, and what was it like? Was it odd?
I can't say it was hard for me, because maybe because I'm vegetarian, I guess that made a difference. I'm used to this plant-based alternatives, and anytime I see something new, I would be like, oh, I really want to try this. But don't get me wrong, it's not something I would eat every day.
Right.
But neither we should do with meat. So I'm like, to those who, I'm not a nutritionist, so I don't want to talk about that too much. But at this, we've been told by the World Health Organization that we shouldn't be eating meat every day anyway. So the debate comes because these plant-based alternatives come into boxes, so they need to put an ingredient labels in there. So, and the traffic light in the UK, for example, telling us how much sodium is there, which is really good. Don't get me wrong, but we can read this information, we see them, but the bad effects of eating animal food, we don't read them because there's no boxes around. Meat is not packed in a way that would tell us how bad that is for our health in the long run, but we know that it's there. So, but anyways, in terms of plant-based eggs, so I got this plastic bottle with this yellow liquid inside. What I've done was simply pouring that into a pan and start scrambling it, and the process was exactly the same of scrambling an egg.
Really? And it's scrambled similarly to
very similarly. Oh, I would say the same.
Really?
Yeah.
And then have it on toast? What did you do with it?
No, just
you just ate it
just that. I'd really want to taste a plant-based egg without
not even any ketchup or hot sauce or anything like that. Nothing.
Just a little bit of salt. But it was pretty salty already.
Right.
So
that's the thing that I think often is a criticism of plant-based alternatives. They do tend to be, to make them sort of palatable.
Yes.
They do tend to fill them with salt and fat. And
this one was made of mung beans, and I had once mung beans in China. They definitely don't taste like that plant-based eggs. So I'm like, they put something in there to change, to make it this tasty. But
I guess all of these things over time will be refined and made more healthy. And
let me also tell you something though about the utility of having a plant-based egg alternative. When I went back home and I told my dad I was going to do a PhD in consumers behavior for plant-based eggs, he was super excited because he is a doctor and he's particularly is a pediatrician, so has been spent all his life trying to look for new diet for children suffering from egg allergies, which is a huge problem in kids.
Really?
Yes, big problem.
I have never heard of that before.
It's like I don't want to say the wrong number, so I'm not gonna try with that, but the percentages of children suffering from egg allergy in the world is impressive.
You can just make up a number. No one's gonna check. It's just like it's 85% of children.
No, but like around 10% of the kids in the world suffer from
I don't know
egg allergy.
That's allergic to eggs.
I promise you, it's a big thing.
Where are these people?
they're out there. No, they are. It's real. That's real. And imagine like going to parents and say, "Oh, your kids can't have eggs anymore." They wouldn't know what to
It's
do,
in
right?
everything.
Right, cakes and scrambled eggs, and so that would be a big deal. And my dad was like, "Oh, that's really something, because that would solve lots of problems, because." Parents don't know what to do when the doctors come up with such a big problem, so it's even told me something like, oh, this could be something that I really want to test with my patients, because if they like it, and of course the European authority, safety authority, approves that, it's a game changer.
Yeah, certainly for the masses of children with egg allergies that I'd never heard of until just now.
I promise. Look, I promise that this.
People are allergic to everything now, though. This is the country boy comes out of me again. It's just like I don't know anyone that's allergic to anything. I know one girl that's allergic to nuts, and I think it must have something to do with the fact that we all rolled around in the dirt outside with like animals, and for most of our childhood, the idea of someone being allergic to eggs is, I don't know why, but it's wild. But yeah, great if there's an alternative that people can use that allows you to eat sort of more normally than you might be able to do if they didn't exist at all. Does your dad still live in Italy? Mm-hmm. Okay, whereabouts in Italy are you from?
It's
just give me north south, because I'm not going to know.
Oh, okay, no, right in the center.
Right in the center.
It's not north and south. Yeah,
okay.
It's a small town, so yeah, you wouldn't know.
It's just small town, no like big cities or anything. So okay, there's small town kids with egg allergies.
Well, it's not just a small town; it's all around Italy, actually. But yeah,
really,
in my town, the problem was pretty important.
It's a significant enough problem that your dad, as like a local doctor, has gone, we need to do something about this.
That's what he told me. Yes.
Wow. And then you came to him with a perfect
I've got
solution.
a solution. Yes.
So is your dad buying up shares in?
He really wish he could.
Companies.
Yes, he really wish he could.
I suppose if it's still sort of technically illegal here.
Yeah, exactly.
There's
there's no way of doing any trial. That's what he was thinking, though. It's like when this gets approved, because it's gonna get approved. It's already in Europe. There's already some talking, around that. So it's gonna get approved at some point. But yeah, it's like, it's gonna be nice. It could be nice to just get a small bunch of kids with egg allergies and see how they react to that.
Yeah, why not? It's great. Yeah, great idea. And I'm sure it would be a very good thing for their parents, because egg is in everything.
Yeah, joking aside, so it would help a lot. Yes.
You never. It's very rare that you pick up, especially something that's sort of processed, and you read the ingredients and there's no egg in it at all.
Think about these children. They would go to a birthday party just sitting there without eating anything for the whole day.
It's very sad.
Unless, of course, someone brings them
some plant-based
their
eggs.
own food or plant-based eggs.
And also, I think with a lot of these things, after a while, these products become cheap enough that it just makes sense to put them in everything, because your consumer base is going to be bigger, because there aren't people with allergies that can't eat your product. So
exactly,
once these plant-based eggs get to the point where they're of a comparable cost to regular eggs, why wouldn't you use them when it means more people can buy your product?
Right.
I guess. So this is, as you know, the Papercast. So we should probably talk a little bit about the work that you've done, and very professionally you printed it off and brought it with you, which I don't think anyone else has done so far. I normally print them off, and then occasionally you'll have other people or the guests like, let me just remember what I said about that.
I'll do that.
What were the figures there?
That's not professional. That's exactly why I printed them. I was
very good. I'm impressed. I'm very
I'll
impressed.
need help at some point.
So we're talking about two separate studies, two separate publications, but was it with the same group of participants?
Same sample size, same group of participants.
And how good did you feel about getting two papers out of a single piece of work? Because that must have been amazing.
Wow. As soon as I realized that was what was going to happen, I was like, yes. One data collection, two papers.
Yeah. Yes. People that don't do PhDs that are listening, if any of you are out there, that's the jackpot. That's the dream. It's like a 2-for-1 deal. You do one amount of work and you get two equally important and helpful for your PhD.
Although I've known
outcomes.
PhDs doing one single data collection and being able to do like 3 papers out of it,
Really?
the entire PhD thesis.
Who
with
are these
one.
people?
Yes,
What
I
are they
know.
studying, and can I swap?
Yes. Like, how do you even do that?
Because it takes me like 6 months to get any data, because I have to grow plants and I have to wait for them to grow. There's a guy that I had on that does stuff with oak trees. So he's like, he has to wait forever to get any data.
I know.
Although luckily he's working on saplings, so they grow pretty quickly. But there must be people out there that work on, think like whales. Yeah. And they have to wait for like 20 years.
I always say, like, I've got PhD friends in so many different fields, and I'm like, guys, we can't just compare with each other. I've done all my data collection online. Consumers are everywhere. My sample was very broad. I wasn't really looking for some specific people living in some unknown villages in Florida or things like that. So I always say that's also one of the reasons why I finish in 3 years. But there are some people, they just can't, because it's, they have to wait, and there are so many other factors that they can't control.
Sorry. So how did you say it was pretty easy to find these people and you had no specific sort of requirements. How did you go about recruiting people for your study?
So because there was a pandemic, I couldn't really just knock people's door or put advertising in the school, which is what I would have done if, COVID never happened. So I found this website called respondents.com, where you can just upload your project and say, okay, look, I'm looking for these people. I'm giving £20, £10, whatever you're going to them for their time. Do you want to join this focus groups on plant-based eggs? And as soon as I popped the word plant-based eggs, everyone's like, oh yes, I want to join. Oh, this is really interesting. So it was really easy. Like I had like, I think 9 focus groups. Yeah, that's where I need to look back at my papers. But I think, it was like 9 focus groups, 180 participants, which is a number I didn't think I would reach. But with this website, it was just easy. It was people coming to me, texting me and say, oh, can I join your focus group? And in the same website, you can also create a calendar with the date and time of the focus group, and people can say, I'm free tomorrow, maybe instead of today. Can we do tomorrow? And if the other people are also available on the next day, you can also move the focus groups. So it's, I've told about this website also to some colleagues of mine, and they're finding very, very useful.
So that brings up the question of, is there anything special about the sorts of people that would go on a website that finds people for focus groups and say, yes, I would like to be part of a focus group? That presumably is a slightly sort of biased group of people.
It is, yes, because of course people, I don't want to say of course, but those people were people like having in mind the idea of doing marketing research, and so they were very well educated.
Yeah.
So, that was the biggest bias I found. But then in terms of age, income, what else I was looking for? Egg consumption, very broad socio-demographic information. Not so much, I have to say. There was a pretty good homogeneous number of people across all these other factors. But on an educational base, they were pretty well educated. Yeah.
And did you get a nice mix of sort of British people and Italian people as well?
Yeah, I've got exactly the same number. Sorry,
right.
90 Italians and 90 British.
And was that something you sort of set out to get?
That was my goal. Yeah, that was my goal. Exactly the same number.
And what is that noise?
Yeah, I don't think it's your stuff though.
It's
outside.
Coming out from outside. People listening that can't hear that, it's like I don't even know what that's like.
I don't know what it's like. Yeah,
sounds like a spaceship flying past the window or something. What was I going to say? Did you presumably you picked British people because you're doing a PhD in the UK.
Mm-hmm.
Am I right to assume that you picked Italian people because you're Italian, you speak Italian?
Yes,
there was
course.
No other special reason for...
No, source-wise. It was all about, what I've got on the table. I even thought about including Chinese people at some point, but thinking about doing an entire focus group where they first need to write a map and then, talk for another hour or so about, their cooking habits and things like that entirely in Mandarin. I was like, is it real? That's another tip I want to give to PhD students. Don't go for the impossible. It would have been so much nicer to have Chinese people instead of Italian, and sorry, British, but just because their market is so massive and they're the biggest, egg producer, in the world. So that would be so much more valuable, saying China in any of my papers. But at the end of the day, I was like, what's more important? What's the priority in my list? Getting a PhD, publishing papers, or having, yes, Chinese consumers, but then taking, 1 year more just to find people who would help me with the translation and then maybe even pay someone. Definitely the first case, definitely I needed to finish my PhD. I needed to publish papers. So at some point I just said, okay, I'm Italian, I'm in the UK. That'd be the easiest way. British, UK and Italian people would be the easiest way. And I went for it. So, be realistic.
Yes.
that's another tip.
Absolutely. I think that is probably the most common theme that comes up. So this is the 7th episode, and I think in probably 5 of the episodes that I've done so far, the idea of not letting the perfect get in the way of the good has come up in the majority of these conversations, because you can sit around for months designing a experiment or some data collection that you want to do that's perfect, that is the most interesting paper that anyone ever would have read if you managed to get it published, but then you end up like realizing it's impossible and you don't get anything done. And if you'd just done something realistic, you'd be so much further down the line, and you would find out interesting things. It doesn't have to be the biggest, grandest study anyone's ever imagined to find out interesting things. Yeah,
and let me tell you, there's always time to do, the other things you're thinking of while you do your PhD, but you can't do because of resources and things like that. Like, for example, if academia would have been my path, I would probably turn to the Chinese market in the long run, because probably I would have got more money, more funds. So it's not something, what you can't do during your PhD is not going to be just impossible for the rest of your life. You're going to find a way to do that if you really want to do academia after that.
Absolutely. So you have your 180 participants, you have your 90 Brits and 90 Italians.
Yeah.
How do you go about getting information out of them about plant-based eggs?
Okay, some people...
It's quite a big question.
Yeah,
I'm sorry.
yeah,
we can break it down a little bit more if you want.
I had a discussion guide, first of all, that helped a lot, like setting, the goal that I wanted to achieve. So, of course, you don't go there blind, what you want to ask them. And, because they came to me saying, I want to join your focus group, they were really prone in, talking and say, okay, I really want to know more about this product. And, the fact that I was talking about such a new product helped massively. They were like, oh, I really want to be there. Nobody was late, for example, which from my past experiences in focus group always happens. So it was like people are there mostly because, you're paying them and, it's marketing research. They don't care so much. But because I was talking about such an innovative topic, they wanted to be there. Some people were even suffering from egg allergy. Right. Now that you say that, they say that. So they wanted to be there, to find an alternative for their problems. So I didn't struggle too much in terms of, getting information. The discussion guide helped in a way that, I first asked them, what do you do with eggs? And if you don't eat eggs, why you don't eat eggs? So the general background, egg-wise. And then, I went into the product itself. I showed them the plant-based eggs with a video and asked them, what. And so in this first paper, it was more like them writing down their thoughts about what they've seen in the video without me prompting any questions. Whereas in the second one, I was there like saying, okay, you've seen this. What do you like? What do you dislike? What do you like to see different? And how can, a plant-based egg company change this product to make it even more appealing for you?
Okay. So that's the distinction between the two papers then, is the first one is sort of preconceived ideas just based on, their life experience and then the video that you showed them. And then the second one is more of a probing about, okay, what's important to you?
Yes.
How can we, improve these products? What would
Yes.
make you purchase them?
And from a marketing perspective, the main difference is also that this helps marketers to find out consumers' perception without you prompting questions. So if they are in a supermarket without anyone around, which is most cases, in what happens normally, what would come to their mind? What can you do to communicate this product in a way that what they're thinking is the same that they're reading and seeing on your product? Whereas this one is for the plant-based egg producer. So what you should be doing to make it better for your consumers.
And did you collect the data in different ways between these two experiments?
This one was concept mapping methodology. This one was focus group methodology.
Could you talk us through the concept mapping first? Because when I read your papers, that was the thing that made the least sense to me, I think, because it's just a methodology that I've never heard of or used before.
Okay. So basically, concept mapping is a methodology where you prompt consumers with any concept. In this case, was plant-based egg, with a video, and you ask them to write the main concept in the center of a paper. So in my case, I've said, please write down plant-based egg in the center of a paper, and you give them like 10-15 minutes to write around this name, around the main topic, anything that comes to their mind, really anything. You need to be silent and let them write down. Also, you ask them to link the names that are related for them in some ways. Like, for example, there was a paper I read on orange juices. I can't remember the brand, but it was this company doing concept mapping analysis on a bunch of people. And there was one concept map that was super interesting for me. One of the consumer wrote apple, and then Snow White, and then childhood. So that's a lot to know for a marketer. To market these people, you probably need to tell them a story related to their childhood, or maybe like go back to the cartoon, see what's Snow White. Okay, so how can you tell a story on an advertising, for example, where you prompt, the idea of this young lady walking into a forest and, jumping into a witch, giving them an apple, and how can this be transformed into an apple juice that in some way sounds more appealing? That's exactly what a concept mapping is doing for a marketing. Is telling them what's the story behind it. And it was similar in my case. They were talking about like the certain, like maybe cakes that their grandma would make for them using eggs, and or similarly, like most English people were talking about going out with friends, doing a brunch or English breakfast, for example, like such a cliche. I know it's a cliche, but I was expecting that. But and of course, if
I fry it?
Frying was a big thing. Yeah. And of course, if you talk about eggs in the UK, you can't miss the English breakfast, probably, right? You need to talk about it, and you need to talk about how this product is going to be suitable for an English vegan English breakfast. I know that doesn't sound right.
That is something I think that lacks on the vegan breakfast, is there's no eggs. They're so important.
No bacon.
No, yeah, but I feel like if you're a vegan, that's not that's not a big loss, I think. But I think the loss of eggs is greater. Yeah. I don't think I could.
Okay.
You'd have to come up with a really good substitute before I start having vegan English breakfasts. Anyway, not that anyone really has them that often, but
most British told me the same, so don't feel. But some others were really curious. They would be like, "Oh, that's good. I know I'm suffering from cholesterol, so if this doesn't, if this does any good to my health, that's something I would go. Maybe not every Sunday, but
it's a start. It makes a difference. Every little helps. I'm interested in the cultural differences that you may have noticed between the Brits and the Italians. I don't know why that is something that I'm drawn to. But were there any sort of obvious differences between the two nations?
The main one was related to cooking needs.
And obviously that was British people talking about cooking because we're amazing cooks and
No.
our food is so much better than Italian food. That's
No,
obviously what we're
mostly
talking about.
like in terms of what they would be needing to do with an egg.
I see.
You know,
I see.
quite
Okay.
obvious, but Italian make pasta, right?
Mm-hmm.
You need to separate the albumen from the yolk.
Mm-hmm.
You can't do that with a liquid plant-based egg. For
Right.
the Italians was like a big no. What should I do? Like just scrambling an egg?
Yeah.
How can I do pasta?
That
How
might
can
be
I
the most Italian thing I've ever. Can we make pasta with it?
Exactly.
No,
That was
we
the
don't want
question. Exactly. Same with some cakes. You need to separate albumen from the
Yeah,
yolk, and
yeah.
that came from the UK as well.
Right.
So they like the idea of having a convenient bottle that could just pour into a pan and scramble it, but they'll be like, the usage of this product is super limited. So.
Mm-hmm.
It's not a super yes for us. Whereas the egg-shaped plant-based egg, which was very much appreciated because of its shape. Like they would be like, oh, I can see a yolk, I can see an albumen, I can separate them. Or maybe why don't you tell the plant-based egg companies to make them in a way that I can use the albumen and the yolk separately. But yeah, cooking-wise was the main difference across among the two countries, I would say.
Did anyone from Britain mention making meringues? Because that's just egg white, I think.
Yeah, few,
Mm-hmm.
few did.
That's
yeah.
the only thing I could think of because you need to separate the. But you can buy regular animal-based egg yolks or egg whites on their own. So I don't see any reason why they couldn't just develop a egg white substitute rather than a whole egg substitute.
There was one of the idea that they gave to me. They was like, oh yeah, we're happy with the liquid plant-based egg, but there should be one solution for the yolk and one solution for the albumen.
Yeah,
that came out.
Okay, so that's some practical information.
It's actually also happening in some
Okay.
They're doing it right now. Some companies are doing that.
That makes sense, doesn't it?
Yeah,
especially if that's what people are asking for.
Mm-hmm.
So you have your people. You get them to write plant-based eggs in the middle of a piece of paper. You get them to unload every thought they've ever had about, or every thought that they've just had about plant-based eggs.
Link them.
Mm-hmm. And you said this was all during COVID.
Yes.
So how did that affect collecting this data?
COVID helped a lot.
Helped?
So much.
Really?
So massively. I would never have thought about doing online focus groups. And
so you're coming on this podcast and coming out as pro-COVID? No?
Oh no, don't say that. No, cut that. No, this is going to be cut.
That's not getting cut.
No, but it helped my PhD massively. I know, I shouldn't say that, but that's so true. Finding a remote way of interviewing people instead of just thinking about face-to-face data collection was saved so much time and helped me finishing in 3 years.
So was it all like Zoom stuff?
Zoom.
Okay.
Yeah, Zoom. And when it comes to writing the maps, I simply told them before joining, bring a piece of paper and a pen. You need that.
You haven't even got a fork out for notepads. Brilliant.
I know. It's like, and so basically, I know that's weird, but what they were doing, they were writing these maps. If they had questions, they would show me the maps. I could easily just have a look and say, oh yeah, this is right, that's wrong, or, go ahead this way. And they were just taking pictures of the map and send it to me. So much easier than actually organizing a physical focus group, traveling maybe around England, traveling around Italy. And I would have got much less people because it wouldn't be feasible to do 9 focus groups in 1 month, because that's what I've done. And
I guess you can draw upon a wider range of participants as well, because you're not limited geographically in any way. That's amazing.
I've got people from Scotland to London,
which you
and
probably wouldn't be doing
Milano
if you were having to get trains
Sicily.
Around the country.
Oh, I would never do that. Yeah, I would never be able to do that.
You said that as if you would never go to Scotland.
No, I love Scotland. No.
I'd never go up there. It's cold, rainy. What I was going to ask you, do you think that affected the answers that people gave you in any way? I mean, I can't think of a way that it would, but do you have any insight into if that made a difference?
I think like with physical focus groups, you get lots of more interaction.
Yes.
Among people, like say, you've got that sort of face-to-face relationship, and so I guess the communication would have been less guided by me and more guided by them if we were all in a single room. That might be enough, one of the affection. But other than that, I don't think, to be honest. Actually, on the concept mapping, it helped because they were in their own rooms without anyone around.
Yeah.
So they could really think about, their thoughts on this plant-based eggs without being affected by, I don't know, seeing a paper from another person or seeing what someone else was writing. So, yeah.
I wonder if you get, more diverse responses because people aren't looking at what other people have written and not conferring and chatting amongst themselves.
In the concept mapping, I would say definitely it was an advantage. In the focus group, not so much, probably.
Right.
Yes.
Okay. I wonder if you lose maybe some social information when people are isolated.
I did.
Like that.
I miss those. Oh, yes, I agree with that. Oh, yeah. I was about to say that. People, of course, were listening to each other, but I've done focus groups face to face, and I've seen lots of more interaction than I've seen in my PhD focus groups.
Right. Yeah. It's interesting. It would maybe be interesting for someone to do the same, say, concept mapping or focus group and do one over Zoom and one in person and see what differences you got from that, because then obviously you've identified some, but there must be more that you wouldn't ever think of.
The professor from Arizona I wrote this paper with, she's now doing a concept mapping online in a survey for the same reason you're just talking about, like seeing how this would affect consumers, behavior and how the concept maps will change, basically. Like, just she's asking them to write this concept mapping, take a picture and upload a picture in the survey. It's
an interesting question. So you get your concept maps and you have a huge amount of qualitative, which is the word I never want to say, data.
So much.
That to me, as someone that deals exclusively in numbers, is horrifying. How do you make sense of pictures of 180 people's scribbled concept maps talking about plant-based eggs?
No, that was horrible. But what you do, you transform words in numbers, exactly, to make your life easier. So you create a matrix for each concept mapping. I'm not saying it's easy. The way I'm saying that, it sounds easy, but it's not. Like, you create a matrix for each concept map. You link every word that has been linked by the consumer with, say, a number 1. You go in a numerical order, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and those matrices are useful because you just copy and put them in the software, and the software will generate the maps for you. Second, because you give to each association a number, and you can do then frequency analysis. You can do, with this software, you can also do connection analysis. So you can calculate how close they are from each other. And the closer they are, the quicker the association has happened in consumers' mind. I know it doesn't sound, I know, tell me if I'm not clear with that, but if I write 2 associations, the idea of concept mapping, if I write the 2 associations very close to each other, that means I've thought about them almost simultaneously, or very close to each other. Whereas if I'm writing one here and the second one there, although they might be linked for some reasons, they haven't been taught like in a subsequent order.
That makes sense. So the ideas are a physical proximity on a concept map is somehow related to a relationship between the ideas. That makes perfect sense. Yeah.
Okay. Well,
if you're especially like, it makes sense if you're writing something and you think of something as you're writing it, you're going to write it right next to what you've been writing. I just said writing way too many times. And I don't think that's going to make any sense.
And that's also important for marketers to know. If it's a close relationship, then you should be talking about those 2 topics, those 2 elements, probably together. But if you see a link, but this link is not so direct, you don't probably want to mix this aspects together in your communication. You want to still probably want to think about a different type of communication for the two elements, if you know what I mean.
Yes.
Because they're not
Yeah.
related, they're not linked
Yeah.
together.
Yeah. So it doesn't make sense to be talking about them in the same breath,
Exactly.
because
Yeah.
that's not how consumers are thinking about them.
Exactly.
Okay.
Right, that's correct.
What after you've done all your grouping and your statistics, it's not statistical, is it? It is statistical.
It turns out to be a quantitative analysis.
Yes. Okay.
Though,
So once you've done all that, what do you? Are there things that sort of pop out that you go, okay, this is really important to the majority of people, or people don't really care about this? Is that the sort of analysis you can do once you've done all this?
Yes. So as I was saying, frequency analysis is the main thing I would go for in concept mapping. The concepts that have been mentioned the most are the most important concepts for consumers, or at least those things that everyone or most people would think about. And the main one was price, of course. So, and looking at all the concepts around price, and then, supporting my first findings with the focus groups, price was an issue because consumers are concerned about the plant-based eggs being much more expensive than conventional eggs. And they'd be like, I have 4 children. I would just go buy a box of 16 eggs and have my dinner done, sorted. With plant-based eggs, I can do how many? Like 4, the equivalent of 4 or 5 eggs. So I would need to buy 5 bottles, 6 bottles, and for just one dinner for all me and my husband and my children, that's just not feasible budget-wise. So that was the main concern. But also lots of, associations about animal welfare, sustainability, the idea of this product being healthier than conventional eggs for different reasons. So the idea was to list out all the potential information that should be communicated when marketing plant-based eggs to the public.
And do you break that down at all? Because I would imagine that, say, take price, because it's probably the most obvious one for people to understand. I would understand that for the majority of people, price would be probably the most important issue. But say you were looking at a group of people who were allergic to eggs, that may become less important. I mean, you see if you go to any supermarket that like the gluten-free bread is more expensive, and I wonder if you ever, if that's part of the analysis, is breaking it down. Animal welfare might be more important to vegetarians than it is to meat eaters, things like that, because presumably at some point when you're marketing these products, you target a market, and that presumably has to modify the way you talk about the product.
Yes, you do.
Is that something you analysed in these papers?
I did a little bit in the focus groups.
Okay.
It didn't make much sense to me to do it in the concept mapping, but simply because it turns out being a quantitative analysis, I wanted to look at the numbers of associations that came up, regardless of who was saying a certain thing. But what's the major aspects that comes out to people? Like I had only like 4 or 5 people suffering from egg allergy. So the thing I should have done, probably I could still do, possibly, is to look at the maps for those 5 people, but what kind of results can really bring. Instead, from a development perspective, even a small sample size could tell the producers or the scientists, look, the plant-based egg, those people suffering from egg allergies, they need this and that, which is different from, those who actually eat eggs. So from a concept mapping side, you can do that. You can look at the single maps of those few people, but you know that, right? And we need robust data to publish. So it was a bit risky, hazardous to go for that route.
So that's more of a follow-up thing. It's like, okay, we've noticed that these, 5 people have mentioned this and they all have this in common.
Yeah.
Let's get 100 people that share these attributes and ask them.
I would probably rather just go back and do a second study with only people suffering from egg allergies.
Yes, that's what I mean. Yeah. So
rather than
you have to follow it up. You can't just you don't want to be subsetting your data till the cows come home. Yeah, because you'll end up with all kinds of invalid results.
Exactly, right.
So why don't we move on to the focus groups then? I think we've sort of gone through the mechanisms of the concept mapping well enough. I think most people are familiar with the idea of focus groups
Mhm.
through seeing them on like TV. And normally it's like a
So
comedy where they've planted someone and they're trying to be, you know, friendly or whatever.
Yeah.
Are focus groups how we sort of imagine them from TV? Is it a group of people sitting in a room and someone's standing at the front asking them questions?
Yes.
It is.
That's exactly what the focus
Okay.
group is.
It's
Yeah.
exactly like that. So
exactly like that.
presumably you are just...
You are the moderator, like
Yeah.
the PhD student or the researcher is the moderator, so the one asking questions, prompting questions, or showing images, pictures, videos, depending on what you're talking about, and people answer your question in random orders. There's no right or wrong way to do that. Like whoever wants to start, and it's you, the moderator, being the one stopping and, you know, prompting question to those people who are probably, you know, maybe more silent or don't feel like talking too much.
That must be a real skill. Getting a room full of people that you don't know, some of whom are going to be, you know, loud and opinionated, and some of whom are going to be quiet and you know, not wanting to share, and then drawing out information from all of them, making people feel comfortable.
Oh yeah, that's something. But what I've seen from my experience so far, the topic really makes a huge difference. If it's something new, if it's something they've never heard before, if it's something they're really interested to know about, they would be there with such a different attitude. That would change all the data you collect, and you know, the fact that they're there because you know, you're giving them an incentive. It's such a secondary aspect at some point. They really want to know what you're talking about. If you're there like just talking about a new mobile phone that's, you know, launching in the market next week,
that's 5% different from another mobile phone.
Of course, with nothing very special. They'll be there just okay, let's do that, but I don't care so much.
That's interesting. So I guess really, if you were a plant-based egg company, you would want to continue to do this over time.
You have to do that all the time. With most companies are doing that. Even you know, the company I'm working with, we're doing consumer analysis and research on a daily basis.
Right. Okay. That's
on
good to know.
Products,
actually,
of course.
Yeah.
But
that answers a question I've had for a very long time, which is, what do people that work in marketing actually do? Because
marketing is so broad, though. But consumer insights, it's an aspect of the marketing. Yeah.
And so how do you, presumably you can't do the same thing that you did with the concept maps, where you sort of codify everything and turn qualitative data into quantitative data. How do you analyze focus group data?
There is a software called NVivo where you can store your findings in using codes. So you can give to each information a code, which, however, is not a numerical code. So you still be dealing with words mostly. But again, you can also, you know, talk about frequency of information, frequency of wording, saying if a concept emerged for 15 times and you gave that concept the name, I don't know, animal welfare in this case, and you see this repeating across the focus groups for a number of time. First, you can, you know, derive an information saying consumers talk lots, you know, they really have lots of thoughts around animal welfare when talking about plant-based eggs. And then you go back to the software where you store that information, and you can sort of put all the people that have talked about animal welfare in the same page in the software, if that makes sense. So you can simply click on the code in the software, and it will give you all the list of people talking about that specific bit, not the entire interview. So you segment the interviews in different topics, and you create these topics by giving them a title.
Okay.
I said code, but code is not the exact word. It's more like you give them a title. You know that, you know, there are 10 topics emerging from your focus group, and then in your paper, for example, you organize your results section in this topic. So you say topic number 1, animal welfare, topic number 2, price, topic number 3, dimension, for example, or appearance, And in that section, you'll be talking about what consumers have said in terms of, the price or the appearance of the plant-based eggs and what they want to be seeing in a future prototype.
Yeah. How do you come up with those sort of titles, those suggestions then? Because obviously some of them are, you have to ask about price. But the things like animal welfare, I'm sure there must be slightly more obscure ones. How do you sort of decide what you're going to ask about?
To be honest, in the video, I gave them a little bit of information in terms of the benefits of plant-based eggs. And I've taken them from a plant-based egg company's website, because my idea was not to bias them by giving them too many information. Of course, if you present a plant-based egg, say, oh, this is a revolutionary way of eating eggs that would save you from contracting a from contracting egg allergy or cholesterol. Indeed, they will say, oh, this is amazing, sounds great. We won't give them information without biasing them too much. So I've taken the exact same information that they would find online, just typing plant-based eggs, and you would be seeing this big company in the US popping up as first result. So I've taken the information from them, and I've basically told them, it saves this number of chicken from being killed, and saves this amount of pollution from going into the atmosphere, because it doesn't require a big farm and things like that. So yeah, they had some information in relation to animal welfare, but there are also lots of concern about the production of eggs, both in the UK and Italy. I have to say, almost all consumers were saying things like, oh, we know that these poor chickens would spend the rest of their life in very small spaces, very small spots in these farms, and we think it's horrible. So I know you're skeptical, but it's...
no, it's not that. I'm just thinking about, so we haven't, I don't think we've really talked about this video yet. So to sort of educate, to get people up to speed, for the concept mapping and the focus groups, you showed them a video. Is it a video of like you stood in front of a camera just talking about plant-based eggs, or how did you produce that?
So do you know Fever, it's online platform with different like designers.
Oh,
and,
yes.
Well, different people are helping you in many different ways. They are
normally like creative people.
Yeah,
like,
creative people.
If you need
mostly.
someone to write like a guitar riff for you, you can go
exactly.
on.
They do lots of services for you.
Yeah.
I found this lady, she's German, and I told them, look, I need a video with this information. Can you record a voice over, and at the same time creating a video where you show this pictures. I gave her some pictures of this plant-based eggs, and yeah, she did that for me. She did a video for me, and I gave her the transcript, so she knew what she needed to say, of course, from me. But yeah, I didn't do the work myself in terms of actual editing and creating the video.
That's a fantastic idea, actually. That never would have crossed my mind, but that is a really smart way to.
Fever is super cheap also.
Is it really?
Very cheap. This girl was really cheap.
Yeah. And so you just sort of wrote a script for her and said, these are the things we want you to touch on, these are the pictures we want you to include, and she just did it all for you.
Yeah.
That's amazing. Yeah,
it was a very short video. I did the voice record for the Italian videos.
Right, okay.
She's Dutch, so she could speak English, but... German, she was German, but she couldn't speak Italian, of course. So I did the recording for the Italian bit, but she did it's called voiceover, I think, on the video. Like she used my record for the Italian video, but the images and the video itself was exactly the same across the two countries.
And you didn't want to do the voiceover for the English one as well?
It's not something I've thought, that's silly, but I've thought about that later. She did the English first, to give me the first version.
Yeah.
We haven't talked at that time about Italian. I don't know why. She was very much focused on the English one, I guess. And then at some point she was like, oh, I will need the Italian recording because I don't speak Italian. I was like, oh, right. So I'll do that for you. That's how it went. I know it's
so the Brits got this nice German lady.
German accent.
Yeah,
yes.
German accent.
Yeah.
There wasn't anyone with an English accent that you thought might be a good idea to get?
I thought at some point, but when she sent me the first draft with a voiceover, I thought English is pretty good. I mean, again, making the right decision to make you move forward the easiest and fastest way.
Yeah.
I could have done those videos in so many different ways. And yes, there was a pain point in my first revision of this paper before publishing. The reviewers had so many things to say about how did you create the video? How can we be sure that what you've said is not too much and didn't influence them in a way that what they wrote in their maps is simply related to the video? There were so many issues that could have stopped me to say, okay, wait, I'm going into a wrong path, or I'm going into a dangerous path whereas people could have said to me, oh, you're guiding them to say these things. It's not their own idea.
Yeah.
But the way we phrased that in the paper eventually was that you're mostly never blind into things when you go in a supermarket. You can read the box, the packaging, you can read, you see advertising in some cases of the products you're going to be buying. So you just don't go to a supermarket and see a plant-based eggs out of nothing. You would have information.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So,
and without the context, the product's sort of meaningless. You're not going to be able to say anything about it unless you understand something about it.
So the way we justify that was this. We've taken information from the biggest plant-based egg company out there, first of all, so consumers can simply go to just Google plant-based eggs and they will see this as first results. And secondly, if they go to a supermarket tomorrow and this product is launched, they will know something about it. So, and yes, we can keep talking about them being biased somehow because that's a factor. But this is part of what the decisions I made to try to progress in the widest, the quickest but also most efficient way. There was this girl available doing very good videos and had so many things to do because all this coding and stuff, and the previous 2 papers they are published before this. So like, what, it's definitely the best way. And I didn't want them to give just a picture. Some other papers have done that. They just gave a picture and said, okay, now write your concept map. I was like, but this is also not realistic. People would know something about this plant-based egg if they see that in a supermarket.
That seems like a maybe more old-fashioned way of doing it, showing them a picture.
Also, this is the first paper using concept mapping in with a new product.
Right.
The others so far, they've used concept mapping with pork and apples. And I'm like, you don't need to show much if you want to, ask people about pork. Everyone knows what people that's know like.
About pork and apples.
So apples even more probably. So, but plant-based eggs, you need something more. That was my rationale.
I think that makes sense. You can't just go into a room and start talking about something you've never heard of before without some sort of context. Do you still have these videos?
I do.
You do? Would you mind sending them to me?
Yeah,
It'd be quite cool to sort of overlay them and people can see what they were while we're talking about them. That would be cool to maybe I'll put them up sort of side by side if that's okay.
Yeah, sure. No, I'd be really happy to.
And so what we've already made the distinction between the 2 papers, but if we could just go over it again, what were you looking to find out with the focus groups that you weren't really looking to find out from the concept maps?
So the focus group was centered around finding a solution or possible solutions to further develop a plant-based egg.
Yeah. So
this is what we have right now, how best we can make it to be more appealing for the consumers.
And that's the context of the focus group. Are they aware that that's sort of what you're trying to get out of them? No, they don't know
don't
that.
tell them what exactly you want to achieve. You don't want to guide them through that. You want them to say, okay, we're going to be talking about plant-based eggs, but I'll prompt you the questions once we're there.
Okay.
I'm not going to tell you anything.
Sort of seems slightly manipulative. It's all a little bit suspect.
Yeah, but they've
We're not going to tell you what we want from you, but we're going to just sort of, get
nothing
you there.
personal, but yeah.
Okay.
Because if you tell them, we want to develop a product or we want, to tell scientists and plant-based egg producers what they can do for you, they'll be I don't know, more critical in a way, if you know what I mean.
Okay.
They would isolate their personal opinion. And I've had that in my personal experience with previous focus groups.
Really?
If you tell them too much, they would be, they would put themselves in like a scientist shoes rather than a consumer shoes. Like, oh,
so it takes a little bit of,
and they would go beyond, seriously, like they would start asking much more things than they would just, and I want me like to grab the information that they are giving to me. I want me to be the one like listing out the next steps for the scientist. It's not like, oh, okay, I ask you to make a list for me of things. Like, I want to hear their stories, hear what they want to tell me, and then, with the analysis, the data analysis, derive the scientist in a way that I can tell them, okay, this is a major problem, this is a smaller problem, this is definitely something you need to address, or this is something, that's there, but it's not as relevant, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, okay. So you are looking for the people to give a sort of honest account about how they feel about the product, rather than an account of what they think should be changed about it. Mm-hmm. Okay, that makes perfect sense. Okay, and what things came up from the focus groups?
So most people, again, for the same reasons we were talking about earlier, they're looking for something that looks like an egg. Mm-hmm. So they much like the idea of an egg-shaped plant-based egg. Right now, it's a solid plant-based egg. The egg-shaped, you don't get the liquidity of the conventional eggs. So they'd be like, okay, we like this shape, but we need to be able to use it like a conventional egg. Yeah. Otherwise, right now it's just an hard-boiled egg. So what can we do with it? Just few things. They also very much liked, so because I asked them to, each focus group was evaluating a different type of plant-based eggs. It was not like everyone testing all the plant-based egg types, because that would be too confusing. I just gave one plant-based egg for each group. And for the powder instead, they liked, the idea of mixing it with other ingredients, for baking applications and things like that. They didn't much like the shape. They said, a powder looks like something chemical. I don't feel like it's natural. It's not something I would eat every day. They were much more skeptical for the powder version than the others. The liquid was very much, praised because of, the convenience. It's in a bottle. It doesn't mess up my kitchen. While with eggs, I would often, mess up my kitchen because I would leave eggshells everywhere. But again, you can't really separate the yolk and the albumen right now. So there was an issue. The color, they really want something that replicates the egg color. They want the very bright yellow, especially the Italian for the to make pasta. You need a very bright yolk, because otherwise it gets too whitey, which it's not something they like. Same for the British though. They said for the English breakfast, you want a really bright yellow in there for your scrambled eggs. Price needs to be similar to conventional eggs. They don't want to compromise on that. Packaging also, they mentioned that we don't like the plastic bottles for the liquid one. It's meant to be a sustainable product, which I think it's a very good point. You can't you can't have a plastic bottle. It doesn't make any sense for us. And then, local production was also very much requested. They were saying things like, I wouldn't trust if this came from the US or Asia. I want a local production. Also because, if it's made with vegetables, it would be much nicer if they're produced here and, just used straight away. And also you save, from an environmental perspective, definitely. It's better. I think that was mostly it. I'm sure that there was more, but it's what they were mostly talking about. The way they would use it, its colors, which affects baking applications and things like that. Price a lot, the major things. Of course, yeah. I just also, now that I think of it, the the vegetarians, the vegans, and those suffering from egg allergies, they weren't really looking for something that replicates eggs. They don't eat it now.
Right.
So they're like, we don't need something exactly the same. We need something that does the same job as eggs, because we're missing that. But
that makes perfect sense because, well, yeah, if they're more removed from that already, yeah, they're not going to feel like they need. But as you say, for the meat eaters or the animal product consumers, the fact that it looks like something they're familiar with does make perfect sense.
Made a big difference.
Yeah.
Yes.
Would that be something that's so maybe this is more relevant to you now as a someone in industry? Is that something you would look at? Would you look at, okay, we have a group of people that don't really care about the form, all they care about is the function because they're already vegans and vegetarians. But then we also have this much bigger market of people that that do care about the form. Is that something that you in your sort of day-to-day job are concerned about? Are you looking at sort of stratifying the population into these different groups and marketing differently depending on who you're talking to?
You definitely have to do that. It's a must in a way that especially because you're proposing a product to solve certain issues, you want to go and listen to those people having those issues. First of all, of course, you start with the broader population. You want to make something appealing for them because it's where your selling point is going to be stronger. But time by time, you also want to customize what you've got for those smaller groups. It's also important to do some, previous analysis and research on how small these groups eventually are. Because in some cases, you assume that those groups are small, but they are not. And they're not this small from a sales perspective. But you do these things mostly with surveys. You don't talk about segmentations and stratifications with focus groups. That wouldn't be robust enough.
Yeah. Okay. It's an interesting thing to think about because I think as I was asking that question, I thought I was starting to think, it's a slightly silly question because obviously, of course, you do that. You have to, but as an individual, you're presented with a single set of advertising, so it's something you never actually come across. So, in my mind, even though I know rationally that, of course, you're looking at all these things, to me, it's like, oh no, these are the adverts. This is what's important about the product. But that's just because I'm being targeted, and these are the things that they know I care about.
Yeah, but also you don't want to make the mistake of targeting that product too much in a way that some people could feel like left over or something like, this is definitely not for me. If you market something like, this is really good for your egg allergy and you don't suffer from egg allergy, you'll be like, oh, this is definitely not for me. That's what you want to avoid as well. So you try to target certain people by doing like a specific communication, maybe in certain websites that they would be looking at for their specific illness or needs for some reasons, but you don't want to put this claims on a packaging, for example.
Yeah, because I could understand how that might have a negative effect, because if I see a product and its sole selling point is that it's for an allergy that I don't have, then I just think, well, I don't need that product. Why would I buy that?
You would think that straight away. Yes, you would be like, this is not for me. Whereas you want to attract people, give the product a chance, regardless of what their benefits, and then you want to target those other bunch of people just in a different way.
That's what always works on me, is the just try it.
Yeah,
just try it. I will try.
Yeah.
If because it feels almost like a dare. It's like a challenge. It's like, just give it a go.
But let me tell you, people are so skeptical when it comes to food. It's something you eat, right?
Yeah.
So it's something that goes straight into your body. I don't know. They want.
And there's no turning back. Yeah, it makes perfect sense.
The skepticism is real. It's big. Yeah.
Because you can get sick. So
get
why
sick,
wouldn't you be skeptical?
With these products, you can waste lots of money eventually. It's not lots of money, but it's money that you would spend otherwise, right?
Yeah.
Why spending like $10, $12 for 3 eggs? I'm talking in dollars because this product is in the US, so I have the US cost. But when I can spend £3 here, is then like it doesn't change my life, but I wouldn't do that if I can eat eggs. That's also the point. So curiosity, yes, helps, but again, like communication is more powerful in that sense, like making people think about certain issues, like the environment, like the animal welfare, like the the benefit that a vegan diet can bring to your life from in the long term to compared to an animal diet. It's where you want to play your cards, I guess, with these products.
Yeah, it's a lot more complicated than
It is.
I ever thought it would be.
It is, yes.
But I think that's because I know people who work in marketing that aren't, involved in marketing research. They just sort of, sell adverts or whatever. So their jobs always seem extremely simple. But I guess if there's all this information behind it, with people like you, doing proper research to find out how exactly you target, or how you go about informing a naive population about a novel product, seems to be incredibly complicated. And you do have that added thing of you could end up ruining plant-based eggs for an entire market. I mean, that must have happened. It must have been the case where a botched advertising campaign has made people turn off whatever for
so many times. Yeah, of course.
That
even with
this at the office.
Even with this plant-based burgers, I don't know if you remember, there was a big explosion in 2015 in Europe. Even surprisingly in Italy, there was a big sale that year. But then because these products weren't meeting consumers' expectations in terms of taste, mostly. You remember the first ones were horrible.
I've never
I don't know if you tried it.
I've never tried one.
Yeah,
no.
The first ones were like, just so bad. After that, there has been such a massive drop in sales. And right now in Italy, they're really struggling in getting things back, despite, there are brands like Quorn, which has made fantastic jams in that sense. Like their burgers are amazing, really good. Go to us and try one. It's really good. I promise.
Yeah, no,
they've got chicken wings and they've got chicken nuggets.
Yeah, I think it's harder for me because I didn't turn fully away from meat when I got put off, because I only really stopped eating like pork and beef and lamb, and I still eat chicken and fish. So the funny thing is as well, and maybe this is people like you not doing their jobs as well as they should be, but I have just never got the urge to try a plant-based burger. Like you see them all the time, like McDonald's and Burger King, KFC all have their own version. But and I am the sort of person that goes, oh, that's interesting, I'll give that a go. But for whatever reason, and maybe actually what it is that their marketing for everything else is so good. Because I know when I go to McDonald's, I want to get a 5-piece chicken selects meal, large with a vanilla milkshake.
Wow.
Every time.
That's precise.
Exactly. Every single time. It's always the same. I get the same sauces. And maybe it's that they've got me so well with that product that it's actually to the detriment of other things they want to offer.
Let me tell you, it's such a risky campaign. They've got this new plant-based line because they want to be inclusive, but I agree they're not advertising it and prompting it to people as much as they would with other products. It's so risky. They've been seen by most population all around the world, like the extra meaty company, like the one selling super delicious burgers, and turning into the plant-based route or moving to this plant-based transaction is really complex for them. I agree they're not doing as much. I'm not aware of why completely. But I guess you don't want to disappoint, the super lovers around the world. Like,
I wonder if that's it. I wonder if they know that the product isn't as good as others at this point in time, so they have it because there are people that want that, and those people are going to buy it regardless. But maybe they're just putting it out there, and eventually, when the technologies improve, which I'm sure they will, it will become something that they push more to people like me who used to eat.
Probably, but also their interest is not to turn you to a plant-based burger eaters. You know what I mean? Like, they still want those people eating the conventional burgers. So
because they're still making money off me. It doesn't matter what I'm eating.
They make, but most of their money out of those conventional burgers rather than the plant-based ones. So yeah, it's quite what you said is correct. They have the options because they want to be inclusive and say, oh, we've got alternatives for everyone, but we make our sales in from the conventional burger. So please go ahead and keep eating them. They will never say to transition to those ones, the plant-based ones.
Yeah, unless it becomes something that is required. Maybe that might be too strong, but I mean, it does feel like at the moment it feels like there's a societal push to be sort of to consider these options because they're better for the environment specifically. But it does feel like that's going to become more of a push going forward, and maybe they will be under pressure to push, especially if they can sell it as environmentally friendly. I'm obviously quite skeptical about that, but skeptical about everything. That's sort of our job. But if that is proven to be the case, surely that they will. Maybe then they will start pushing these things out to a wider audience. Because, like you say, they're not losing money on me at the moment. It's not like I'm not going to go to McDonald's because they've started selling a plant-based burger. That would be insane. One thing that I have to bring up, because this really struck me as odd, and I don't know if I've misread or if you just chose to leave something out of the papers, but no one, it appears, mentioned smell. And when I think of eggs, that's like the second thing I think of.
Wow.
Because there's a distinctive smell.
That's true.
If as a totally naive person, it's had nothing to do with plant-based eggs whatsoever, other than I've read 2 papers on it. That's literally all I know about them. If you would say, what would you be concerned about with a plant-based egg, particularly liquid? I don't know why. I would say the first thing I would say is, what's it going to smell like? It's going to smell weird.
That's interesting.
And you say some of them are made from mung beans. I don't know why, but the word mung makes me think of smell. Like,
they smell nothing, let me tell you.
Really?
Smell
nothing at all?
Absolutely nothing.
That really shocked me that no one mentioned that.
Oh, the mung beans specifically, nothing. The plant-based eggs, it has really a light smell. But yeah, no one mentioned that now that you let me think about it. But are you wondering that because you don't like the smell of the conventional eggs, or you actually like it and you want the same and you're
I don't know why. It just, as soon as I thought about plant-based eggs, I thought obviously what they're going to look like, because immediately my brain goes, oh, it's going to be like a fake egg, like the solid version. And I was like, how are they going to make the yolk, and how are they going to do this? And I thought it would be liquid, so I thought, how are they going to mix it all together? And then the second thing that I thought was, what's that going to smell like? And it's not because I think I would miss the smell of eggs, because I don't think eggs particularly have, unless they're off, they don't really have a distinctive smell. I don't know why. It just, and I think I found it shocking because that was like the second thing my brain threw out. And
no, it didn't came out from this focus groups, but it's sensory analysis and sensory issues are a massive problems for these products in particular. It came out as a massive problem in plant-based burgers studies that have been run, of course, before mine. So I think it's something that's going to pop up in sensory analysis for plant-based eggs, though. It's almost never the first thing that comes up to consumers' minds when you prompt them with a new product they've never seen, never thought about. But it's going to be an issue. Yeah, it's going to be an issue.
Yeah, I was wondering why, and this goes back to the same thing we were talking about earlier, is that you have to get work done and you have to finish your PhD, and all of these things would be nice to do if you had 1 million years and unlimited money. But I did think it would be interesting if you'd have hooked up with the food people here and looked at these things and maybe whipped up some samples for some people. That would have been amazing. But
the challenge was, I have even thought about it for a second, but then I was like, stay focused. But yeah, the problem was finding the samples, because if we could get more samples into the European Union or the UK, we could have thought about doing something with food scientists here. They've got a massive department, and I've spoken to certain people. They were even really interested about that, but they couldn't think about a solution. So what can we do? Like exporting this product, even like finding a way to bring a few samples from the US. That's maybe possibly doing, because of some people from the food scientist department were work with the FDA, so they have some link and contact, and they're also specifically working with a plant-based egg liquid prototype that a company that wants to enter the European Union. So they're asking the food science department at the one is from the University of Reading to do some analysis on the product and tell them how likely it's going to be that the European safety authorities are going to approve it for
Right.
safety reasons and things like that. But then what else? I mean, can we take it and continue transforming it? We would need money, and then we can't really use another company's product, and because there would be they've got the IP, the intellectual property on it. So it would be nice to have enough money to fund a project where someone internally in the University of Reading produces a plant-based egg and then move the product to us in the food marketing department and continue this consumer analysis from a sensory perspective, a sales perspective as well, which
I wish there was more of that here. And it would seem like such a perfect place to do it, especially because we have such a big agriculture department.
It is, yeah.
Like, we could grow the stuff quite easily.
We could do this.
We have a farm.
Yeah.
We could grow it, and you would end up with a series of publications all on the same thing.
You can start a startup as well if you think about it. You would get the product, you would get the people in sales and marketing to promote them and sell them. You would get people from the law school, thinking about all the safety and legislation issues, and you would have everything in one place.
Environment for it, and yet this sort of stuff.
Plus the publications, of course.
Yeah, but it doesn't happen for whatever reason. I wonder if maybe a PhD is too short of a time to do something like that, and then the people that are past that point in their careers are busy doing other things. Yeah,
I don't know in your other department, but in mine also another issue I've seen is there's no much connection with the other departments. Even the food scientist department, I'm like, we're so close, like of course they do totally different stuff, but they could come to us and say, oh, we're producing this, why don't you fund a PhD for in the marketing department to see how likely it's going to be for this product to be out in the market and what's going to be the reaction, or the way around, we're doing this consumer study on plant-based burgers, and I know some people in the University of Reading are producing plant-based burgers. Are you interested to do some sensory testing with us, and we can maybe do a PhD or a postdoc together?
I don't know why there isn't more of that. I think that's such a massive limitation of this institution, and I'm sure of other institutions around the country. I don't know about in other places. I'm sure there are places where you can do that kind of like integrated and cross-departmental research.
Yeah, also because they, the school really push us to do that, right? They ask us to think about extra curriculum stuff, or to try to integrate new subjects into your PhD, but it's really hard because you don't have the resources to do that.
Yeah.
So,
I wonder if maybe students just need to talk to each other more about what they're doing, and ideas like that will come up, and you go, oh, well, maybe we could do that together, and you could do the start where you whatever, do an experiment when you grow a crop in two different ways, and then I take it and we compare if that makes a difference, how it tastes or smells or whatever.
Exactly. Oh wow, yes.
Maybe COVID has put a stop to some of that. I don't know. Maybe it used to happen more before. But yeah, it's a shame that there isn't more of that.
Oh, it's a huge shame and waste of resources and people. Yeah.
Because you're just doing your research, and then that's it. That's the end.
But even just within agriculture, if you think about the very weak relationship across the department, and it's crazy. Yeah, I'm like I've always thought the past 3 years there must be something we in marketing can do about crops as well. It's not, or about any agricultural sector that we can contribute. I'm sure that
definitely. I mean, I've had the thought before, because we have I'm in the crop science department, so we have crop science seminars every week, and it's either a student or one of the academics, and they'll just do a presentation on what they've been up to. And there are people in the department that work on hydroponic crops, and what an interesting thing it would be to take the crop that you've grown that generally just gets up putting it in the freezer or given away to the academics or like the students, to take that and then say, well, we have these hydroponic strawberries and we can just buy some regular strawberries and see what the differences are.
Yes.
And it's annoying because it happens. People will be talking, they'll be doing their presentation, and there's a group of people that work on strawberries, and they'll be going, well, to me, they taste slightly sweeter. And you go, well, that's such an interesting thing to do some research on. Keep the strawberries.
Yeah.
Go to the food people and say, you know how to do all this sensory stuff.
Yeah.
Do you want some strawberries? And we can write a paper together.
Yeah.
It's so frustrating that
I know
that leap isn't taken.
It's definitely not something to underestimate. If people are not going to be liking what you produce, your production is totally pointless.
Yeah. It doesn't matter how many strawberries you can make.
And it doesn't matter how...
Not that the strawberries are bad. The strawberries are very good, but it's an example.
Yeah, how clever your strawberry or your potatoes can be, you know...
My potatoes aren't very clever.
I mean, how brilliant your idea can, in terms of production, can be, but if consumers don't like it...
Yeah, we like to forget about that, I think. We conveniently, in the crop department, forget about that and act like it doesn't matter, and that the product is what matters, but that's not the case at all.
Don't get me wrong, in terms of a product life, I totally understand that consumer evaluation needs to come at the end, but sometimes the end is too late, if you know what I mean. It's just, you've done all the production process, and I know there's so many resources that need to be put in different stuff that you don't really think about, oh, wait, this needs to be liked by the consumers, though.
I mean, it happens all the time in agriculture, because you have these big companies that will develop new varieties of crops. So, like, I know about potato, so we'll talk about potato. You'll get a company that will develop a new type of potato, and it's great, and it's more drought resistant, or it's more resistant to certain diseases or whatever. And then it goes through field trials, or pot trials, and then it goes through field trials, and then they do more field trials, and they have to propagate up the amount of seed they have so they can send it out to farmers, and they see what they think. And then you get, 5 years down the line, and the retailers go, well, people still just want Maris Pipers. Why are we going to sell these weird different potatoes that people don't know? And you go, well, we've done.
They might even be more expensive, maybe.
Might be more expensive, but they might be better.
Yeah,
but
I know.
Consumers have it in their head that they want this sort of potato, and they know what this sort of potato is good for, and they can make this, and this with it. And you've wasted all that time developing a new variety that might even be significantly better than the old ones, but it's all driven by the consumer at the end of the day.
I know, yeah. But I mean, yeah, from a research perspective, I understand that. More should be done, definitely. But, in the process of producing, we're talking about agriculture here, but think about, kitchen appliances, or even more massively cars or things like that. There are so many engineering problems that need to be fixed up before thinking about, our consumers might have this problem with that you put resources in there just to make something work. You then probably, it's not that you forget, you need to prioritize things in the production process. And it turns out consumers is always the last one, but also because of safety, issues and regulation. You can't just produce a food and ask someone to taste it. It's just not the way it works. So there's lots of implications.
Well, that's covered everything I had planned to ask. I don't know if there's anything that I haven't brought up that you wanted to speak about.
I think no, that's mostly it. I hope you enjoyed it, though, and those who are going to be watching this are going to enjoy it.
I'm sure they will. I'm certain. I think this is going to do well, because, like you say, I think the novelty of it draws people in, because you hear plant-based eggs, and people are familiar with milk now. There's plant-based milks everywhere. If you go to I live in London. If you go to a coffee shop in like Richmond, you will be presented with 1,000 different nut-based milks. And if you ask for cow milk, some places will look at you strange, because that's not normal anymore. Especially in sort of the trendier parts of town. But plant-based eggs are something that people probably still aren't at all familiar with, or even thinking about as a possibility. So I think people are going to be interested in.
But you see, even the transaction in the plant-based milk market, I feel, and it's not just my feeling, it's, looking at numbers, has been much easier than, the struggle than the plant-based burgers or meat is experiencing. So, for some reasons that there are lots of people, who've got lactose issues, but that's, I don't know, I don't think that's the reason. Maybe somehow, replacing milk is more acceptable, culturally speaking, or it's easier.
Yeah.
It's not something that you would consume with your friends, or I don't know, but I don't think allergies or any health issues can be the only reasons for that.
No,
that's true.
Yeah, because most of the people that I know that choose to drink non-cow based milk are not lactose intolerant or allergic to milk. I do wonder if it's similar to what you brought up earlier about the idea that you can just swap. It's very easy to just make a cup of tea and put oat milk in instead of cow milk. I wonder if that's part of it. But I guess that's your job to
it's
figure
my job
out.
to answer. I brought you the questions that I should be answering. No, I've never done any research on milk, but I've always been fascinated by, I go to a supermarket and I see the exact same numbers of almond milks and coconut milk maybe than the bottles of conventional milk, and I'm wondering, always wonder why. I was like, why there's this disparity between plant-based meat alternatives and milk alternatives? What's the point? What's driving that?
Yeah, because there must be something. Because it's so much more accepted, and it's a common thing now that you go for a coffee with someone.
You don't even have that distinction in the way these products are positioned in the supermarket, right? They would just be positioned one next to the other without problems. Whereas there's a huge battle out there in the market for positioning plant-based meat alongside conventional meat in the same section of the stores, which is not happening though in most cases. And
I'm trying to think now where the plant-based stuff is. It's like its own little section.
Yeah, they've got a vegan section or a plant-based section.
Yeah. And a lot of it's away with the frozen stuff as well. Like corn's normally frozen, and the burgers you can get are normally
but
frozen.
there are also some fresh plant-based burgers that you could just put in the same section as fresh meat, but it's not happening. And of course that's all economic battles behind that, but I mean, why this is not happening with milk? That's my question.
Hopefully you find out.
A level that's really interesting, and all another market from eggs. So you could do another PhD on that.
Maybe you could get a student to do that. You could your first supervisor role.
I'm done with academia. I'm sorry. I'm done for now.
I think I'm going to follow you there. Let's not go into that.
No, that's another big topic.
Yes, and we could probably talk for hours and hours and hours about that. Thank you very much for coming and doing this. I appreciate you spending a bit of your Saturday talking to me about your work. I'm sure you have been very, very busy. So hopefully for the rest of the weekend you deserve a bit of a rest.
Thanks so much. No, it was so nice, and I love this podcast and this.
Oh, thank you.
This that you're doing. So keep doing it. I think
that.
It's really interesting.
I have to ask you, just because of the date, are you a rugby fan?
No.
No. Okay. England are playing Italy tomorrow.
Oh wow. Okay.
So I wondered because I know it's very popular in the north of Italy anyway.
Okay.
But,
it's popular. Yeah, it's popular, but it's not. Yeah.
I wondered if you were into it, but if not, that's fine. We can avoid that conversation, which is excellent.
Well, we can talk about it, but I wouldn't be the best partner, I guess.
No.
Who's gonna win? You think?
England.
Okay, fair enough.
Yeah, I don't think we've ever lost to Italy.
Wow.
I don't think they've ever.
An easy game tomorrow.
Well, they're getting a lot better. They played France last week and they got hammered, but they played really well.
Okay.
But the thing is, people have been saying that about the Italian rugby team for 20 years now. It's they play really well, but they just always lose.
Wow.
It's the passion, I think, that comes through it.
I don't think I've ever seen a game.
Oh, well, maybe you should watch one on Sunday.
I'll try to remember and see how it goes. Maybe tomorrow. Yeah.
I think if you're going to win any, you'll beat Wales this year. So maybe watch out for Italy Wales, because I can see you doing quite well against them. But that's mostly because the Welsh have been so bad. Anyway,
then it's not like not that good anyway.
Also, we still haven't forgiven you for the Euros.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah, don't talk about it. Yeah,
that was a long day.
I'm getting my British passport
really
soon, so I'm like, I don't know what I should be supporting now. I'm not like a big fan of football anyway, right. So I wouldn't mind.
Why do you want to do that? Why do you want to be a Brit?
Brexit mostly.
Right. Okay.
Yeah. And I'm planning to stay in the UK for now, so I'm like that. Make things so much easier. I don't have to think about any bureaucracy or documentation anymore.
Okay, yeah, that makes perfect sense. Could you explain to me why anyone would choose to live here when they could live in sunny, nice
in like
Italy,
Capri or
yeah, I don't know why you would choose
Rome. Job. It's just so much better.
Right. That's a good reason to put up with the weather.
I would never do a PhD in Italy.
Really?
Yeah.
Why do you say that?
Because you get a grant in the UK, which is very hard to get in Italy.
Well, that's a shame.
Although the Italian universities are really good, I would have happily done a PhD there for the network and the people you could be able to collaborate with. But
just wouldn't have been possible with the
budget
funding situation.
Yes. Okay. It's all about that, isn't it? In most cases, like when you see people. But I don't mind the UK. Like even
you don't mind it. Great.
No. I don't like the weather, of course.
Of course, but no one here likes the weather.
Yeah, and I'm when I do consumer analysis in the UK, and in general, I ask people, what's your struggle in life? For some reasons, you happen to ask that to people. Weather is always one of the first issues.
The struggles of life.
Yeah, like it makes me happy. It makes me sad, and I don't want to wake up in the morning because I see grey sky and things like that.
Oh,
so, yeah.
Grow up.
No.
That's what it is, though. But also, it's fun. People get so annoyed about the weather here, but it's always just sort of fine. Like it's never really too hot. It's never really too cold.
Yeah.
It rains quite a lot, but
fine. Rain is the pain. Yeah, let me tell you.
Well, maybe you should move to where I'm from then, because I'm from the sunniest county in the country, and it actually does very rarely rain where I'm from. In Suffolk, so East Coast. There's nothing to do, and there's no one there, and it's just farms, but the weather's relatively good.
Okay.
So that was the thing we enjoyed growing up, were dry summers, which most people in the UK don't get to experience.
Yeah. I used to live in Manchester, and there it was rainy.
Yes.
Like rainy. There was a massive rain, quantitative rain every day almost. But now that I moved to the south, it's not.
Yeah, the south's better.
Yeah,
in every way.
Yeah.
That's going to really annoy some
Sorry,
people.
don't cut this. Yeah. Sorry, no, I wasn't meant to say that. I was just in the flow of the conversation. No, that was nice.
The best bit about the podcast is getting people to say things that.
Oh no.
They never regret.
No, I didn't want to say. Yeah, it's more like I enjoyed staying in Manchester.
Yeah, no, it's fun up there. Yeah, been up there a
really,
few times,
it's rainy.
Yeah.
To that level that you're like, come on. No, not today.
You just wake up and again. Why?
Yeah. That level of rain. Yeah.
Good for agriculture though.
Yeah.
So we'll take it. Anyway, I think we should probably finish there. So
yes.
Once again, thank you so much for doing it.
It was a pleasure, really. Yeah, it's really fun, and
first part of your Saturday to do it.
No problem.
Hopefully the people enjoyed it, and I will say thank you very much for listening and for watching. And do you want to, I don't know, shout anything out to the 4 people that are going to watch this? I don't know why. I feel like I should ask that out of politeness.
No, really. No, just want to say that, I'd like to motivate people to be curious around food and, possibilities out there. It's not just, I know it's a big change. Food is part of our daily life, so it's not easy, but world is moving in that sense as well. So it's important to remain up and curious about that.
Great. That's going to be a clip. It's going to end up on Instagram.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. Thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. Thank you so much for being my guest.
Thank you for having me. Thank you.
I will see everyone watching and listening in the next episode, which is going to be on some more weather stuff. I think I haven't read the paper for that yet, but I think it's more weather stuff. If you know anyone that wants to come and do this,
yes.
please send them my way, because it's really hard to find people.
Yeah, okay.
Thank you so much.
No problem.
Bye.
Bye.